Hi everyone, it's Lindsay and I'm here today to share with you some shadow stamping. So let's get started. So I am starting off with a 4¼ by 5½ inch piece of gray cardstock, and I'm using the brand new Bless stamp set. This is from Inspired by Stamping. So I've got the Blessed sentiment already loaded onto an acrylic block, and I'm going to be inking this up first with some Memento London Fog ink. This is a light gray ink that almost matches the shade of gray cardstock that I have. It's just almost a shade darker, so it will show up. You could also use Versamark ink and any color of cardstock for this. I just happen to have an ink that matched my cardstock, so that's what I'm using. So this Blessed sentiment has two little tail ends on it, so I'm just going to connect those each time I stamp, and I'm going to stamp across the cardstock that I have laid out here. So you can see I'm going to now connect that end tail with the beginning tail of the first Blessed that I stamped with that last Blessed that I stamped, and this is just going to create a continuous sentiment. There's not going to be any breaks then. And I'm going to fill up this entire card panel with these stamped images. So now I'm going right underneath, and I want to make sure I give a little space between each row that I do here. Because I'm connecting the tail ends of these, it's not going to be a perfectly straight line. It's going to be a little uphill almost. So I want to make sure that I have enough room on my card panel, that I'm not crowding any of these sentiments together. I'm also going to go ahead and do these at different spaces. I don't want all of the squiggly lines all the way across, up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the Blessed where the last squiggly lines were, and that's going to give me a nice cohesive look on this panel. So I did speed this up a little bit. It's quite a lot of inking and stamping, but a lot of times I like a lot of inking and stamping rather than coloring. I love coloring, don't get me wrong, but there are times I just want to go in my craft room and stamp. This is the perfect card for that. So I've just got one more row left to do here. And again, I'm just going to fill in where those squiggly lines were with my actual word the next time. And then I'll just continue to connect. This doesn't take that many sentiments to fill up an entire row, so it is actually a little bit quicker. So now I've brought out my black dye ink, and I am going to stamp this Blessed word again, and it's almost going to be directly over the Blessed words that I've already stamped. However, I can see straight through, so I'll line it up, and then I'll move it a little bit to the right and just a little bit downwards as well. And this is going to give the look that I've stamped this black one first, and I've got a shadow behind it. Now I messed up a little bit here on this word. You can see I didn't completely stamp the top of it, but because these are clear stamps, I can go right back through, see exactly where I lined it up, and restamp it, no problem. Now once you get your first word in a row down, all you need to go and do now is connect your little squiggly lines like you did beforehand. So you don't need to look directly through and line it up each time. If you want to do it that way, that works. However, I found it easier just to line up my lines like I did beforehand, and it ends up working out perfectly that way. Now I chose to move my stamp a little bit to the right and a little bit down as well. However, you could move it just to the right, you could move it just to the left, you could move it up or down. It's really up to you how you want your shadow to look. I suggest you just play around with it and find what looks best to you. I'll just go ahead and speed this up now because again, I'm just going to continue to do this technique. I'm looking straight through that first one, lining it up, moving it a little bit to the right, a little bit down, and then I'll stamp it down, and then I can go and finish off the row by connecting my lines on both sides of that stamp. I'm also starting in the middle of it just because it's easier then for me to connect on both sides of the stamp, so I don't have to do any more lining up. So I got that last one down. I'll go ahead and clean off my stamp very quickly and put away my ink, and then I'm going to show you a close-up of how the shadow looks behind that, and it looks really neat. Like it honestly does have a shadow behind it. So I wanted to use some of the brand new ribbon from this release on my card as well today. So I am just putting some adhesive on the back of my card panel. I don't wrap my ribbon all the way around cards when I do use it. I feel like that's wasteful. So And also it creates more bulk than I think there needs to be. So I just do 2 little strips of adhesive on the top and bottom, wrap my ribbon around, then I can cut it exactly where I need to, and I don't waste anything. And I also don't have that bulk behind the card base as well. So I'm going to add a bow to this, and the way I like to add bows, I don't add them very often. I am not great at tying them, so I'm sure you can find much better tutorials out there on tying your bows, but I leave it connected like almost completely to my ribbon. I go ahead and tie it on one end. So here I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that through, tie it up, and then I'll just go ahead and snip that off. So I have 2 little tails hanging off, and I feel like this saves me a lot of ribbon as well. I don't waste as much as when I do it this way as if I were to cut off a piece of ribbon that I think is going to be long enough. A lot of times I don't guesstimate right because I don't tie a lot of bows, so I end up with either an entirely too long of a piece or much too short, and then I've got to go and start all over again. So that just works out for me. So for my sentiment, I went ahead and stamped the "May All Your Days Be" from that Blessed stamp set as well on a white cardstock banner that I've just angled at one end. I've also cut a pink and a vellum banner that are a little bit thicker than that white banner, and I'm just going to layer these up right alongside that bow. So I didn't actually stamp Blessed to finish off that sentiment, but I feel like I have enough on the background. I also went ahead and separated out a few of the light pink sequins from the Valentine's Day sequin mix from Inspired by Stamping. Again, it was released just with this new release, and I'm going to go ahead and place the 3 of these down onto my card panel with some glossy accents and my Quick Sticks tool. I will go ahead and add this panel right onto an A2 side folding card base. It's going to completely cover the white card base, and I really should have done this before I added my sequins on there. It just skipped my mind. So I went ahead and added the adhesive to the actual A2 card base, and then I'll just lay over my panel on top of that card base and stick it down and line it up. Now I know I did add ribbon onto this, however this card will go through the mail nicely because I don't have that added extra bulk on it. It may take a little extra postage, but that's okay for handmade cards. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and as always I will leave you with this close-up and just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog. That link is in the description box below, as well as some of the main supplies I used on today's card. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting!